your Mother's Day. And moms, I hope you had a great day. I know I did. We drove out to Fort Hood to go visit my military son. It was wonderful. And Saturday we were out on the boat on Lake Conroe. So it was a wonderful Mother's Day weekend. And I'm sitting here with a bunch of guys that are not mothers that I'm aware of. Probably fathers, or could be. I don't know. Maybe Christian's not a father, but
not that he knows.
Right. Okay. So before this gets out of hand, I am Margie Taylor, and this is Conroe Culture News from Lone Star Community Radio, downtown Conroe, FM 104.5, 106.1, next door to Conroe Coffee. So we have some wonderful guests today. We have a candidate for Precinct 2 Commissioner, and the runoffs are going on now, Greg Parker. We also have Erik Yollick of the Golden Hammer, and Christian Collins, who works with the Kevin Brady campaign, Congressman Kevin Brady. And this show is sponsored by Roger Stein Chiropractic Center, which is located on Highway 105 by Conroe High School and Taco Bell. So a few things that are going on before we get carried away into local politics, national politics, and all of that. I want to mention some things that are happening here in downtown Conroe. So there's some premier events that are happening this week. Red Onion Company on the square right across from the courthouse will host a entertainment. Joey Ashton is the owner of the Red Onion Company. And if you haven't been there, he has daily specials. He's open for breakfast and lunch, and he's been open since July 1st last year. He is an ex-detective, and he is, so he's having some entertainment there on Thursday night. The guy's name is Troy Hess, and that will be from 6:15 to 8:15 with food, entertainment, and you can bring your own live spirits of alcohol. So also right next to us at Conroe Coffee will be Race Ready Repair Custom Bicycle Shop. Yes, there's a bicycle shop right next door, and they're getting ready to open. And they're having their grand opening on Saturday. So go by and get free beer, raffle prizes, and that starts at 4 p.m. Saturday. So it's the newest and sweetest adventure with bikes from Salsa and All City. Not really sure about that, what that is. A bike's a bike to me, but go by and go check it out. Get some free beer. Also at the Crichton Theater, the historic Crichton Theater, will be James and the Giant Peach. And that will be on Friday and Saturday evenings with a Sunday matinee. Tickets are available at crichtontheater.org, and that is sponsored by Children's Youth Theater of Houston. So this is kids from the age of 5 to 18 will be in James and the Giant Peach, and probably some of their parents as well, because this is a family-oriented thing. So Friday night is the third Friday night Movies in the Park. That's hosted by the city of Conroe at Heritage Park, and they will be showing Beauty and the Beast. So that is absolutely free. Families can go out there, bring their lawn chairs, and enjoy some fun. So that's going on every Friday night through May. And do not forget that there's also live entertainment every Friday and Saturday night, and actually most every day of the week in downtown Conroe, but especially Friday and Saturday nights at Red Brick Tavern, the Corner Pub, and Pacific Yard House. So, of course, nothing is better than life in Conroe. We're going to talk about voting time. So we're just going to roll right into it because this is the runoff time right now. And there are several locations where you can go cast your vote from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And so there's a runoff election in Precinct 2 race and the Precinct 4 race. So with that, again, let me introduce my guests. So I have Greg Parker, who is in the runoffs candidate for Precinct 2 Commissioner. I know better. Erik Yollick, who's with the Golden Hammer, and Christian Collins, who is Chief of Staff.
Campaign manager.
Campaign manager. Well, it's all roles the same. Campaign manager for Congressman Kevin Brady. Hey, that's okay. So welcome, gentlemen. What say you?
Well, how are you today, Margie? Good?
I am great.
That's fantastic.
I'm ready to roll.
I did vote today. I went down there. There were a couple of people there, and we're looking to get a lot more people out to vote in this runoff election. It is very critical. We have a very critical election. We've made some significant changes within the structure of Montgomery County here in the last month or 2 months. And it's good to see that, as Erik calls them, the reformers are now taking over the county government. And it's good to see that. but we need to finish it up. And it's time to finish up the work we've started so we can bring about real change here in Montgomery County.
So there's several places that you can go vote. And let's talk about this first so that people know, and then we'll talk about it again just to remind people, because the most important thing in a runoff is getting the people to go out there and vote.
That's right.
Because people forget. They know about the one that happened on March the 6th that kind of shocked people, I think, the way that things changed up. But they forget that they need to go back out, and Election Day will be May 22nd, which is a week from Tuesday. But this week, Monday through Friday, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., they can vote at, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 6 locations. I hope that's right. Mm-hmm. At the Alsworth Building, which is basically Conroe, downtown Conroe. Yeah. And so that is on West Phillip Street. The Magnolia, which is really going to be a place where you see voter turnout, right, Greg?
Yes.
South County Community Building on Lake Robbins Drive in the Woodlands. The North Montgomery County Community Center, which is in Willis. East County Courthouse, which will affect the Precinct 4 race a great deal, in Jim Clark. Mm-hmm. And then there's the Lone Star Community Center in Montgomery.
Yes, that's correct.
And that's it, just those places. So you do not have to be, anybody can vote at any place. So I could go vote, even though I live out in Montgomery, I could go vote in East County or the Woodlands if I was so inclined. Correct, Erik?
Well, that's right. Of course, you do have to live in the voting precinct. So, you have to live in precinct 2 or 4. I hope you don't mind me saying this, Margie, and I certainly do appreciate Roger Stein Chiropractic for sponsoring the show. But the person who really has made a sacrifice for reform in this community is Margie Taylor and your husband, Jeff.
Well, thank you.
I've known you for a long time. I've heard about you for many years from my late friend, Marie Moore. And I know all the sacrifices that you and Jeff made. I mean, Jeff basically sacrificed his career so that you could fight for reform in this community. You fight for small businesses. You fight for the other businesses and organizations that you serve. And we should all thank you for the very serious sacrifice.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm like Greg. I fight for what's right, ethically right. And you can't go wrong if you're always doing the right thing, right? You don't have to go back and retract on that because it is what it is.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
So, and hopefully we will see some changes coming forward here by late next Tuesday, the 22nd.
Yeah. Sure. I want to echo that with that Erik mentioned, because I know at this present time, you're taking a little heat having to do with particular candidate's campaign, but the fact that you're out there and you're standing strong, that's important to see, for all to see, because you are being watched. You're in the PR industry. So it's good to see that, you have those convictions and moving forward with that. It's always, really, really uplifting to see that.
Well, and actually, I'd like to add another person who obviously has made a lot of sacrifice is Greg Parker.
Oh my God, no.
Well, no, I mean,
it's true.
Because,
it's true.
Greg walked into a very difficult race. With a, part of, perhaps you could say, Texas that, isn't necessarily so welcoming to reform and to conservative ideas and to change. And it's really remarkable, but what both Greg and his wife Tasha have done, they're spending all of their time now on this campaign. They've taken a lot of sort of pot shots, I would say.
A lot of criticism.
That's right.
Straight out criticism and made up stories. And I guess that happens in politics, right? When the tough get going, they get desperate.
They do.
Right. So
they do. To be honest, I want to thanks, Erik. I appreciate that. For us, granted, we just want to make change and positive change for the community that we've chosen. It is very disheartening to see people who just make stuff up out of the wind and don't particularly care who it affects or who it hurts. And that is really disheartening. If, sticking to the facts is something that is in political campaigns now has really just gone by the wayside. It's no longer just a gentleman's agreement to just stick to the issues. Now it's about, tearing down a particular person's character and scorched earth approach. And it's really just not right.
It bothers me a lot, not as much as I'm sure it bothers you, because there's a lot of pot shots at you. Mm-hmm. But we all live in this community. Are we all going to live here like on May 23rd? I mean, what is the game plan?
Yeah,
is there Armageddon? I mean, I don't know. Christian, what do you think about all this?
I think people will have to get used with the results
Whatever
of the
is.
election. So
Whatever is,
they'll have to get
right?
used to it.
Yeah,
I mean,
So,
you know,
whoever wins this race, they'll have to make peace with the other side and work
Yes.
to bring
and
people
work
together.
with them because they will
Yeah,
be
true.
the leader, right? That's just the
Right.
way it is.
Yeah. I mean,
You know?
I mean, Christian have talked about that too, and he's right. No matter what side ends, we're going to have to come together to get anything done. I mean, it's clear from the early voting, from the primary election that me and Mr. Riley are pretty much neck and neck. Now, regardless of whether, if you take out the Brian Dawson votes, or if you add those in, or if our polling says they're coming to us 2-1, the fact still remains is we're going to have to work with everybody on each side. So that's why I don't understand throwing out the bombs or tearing down a person's character from that standpoint. It's just not productive. It really isn't, because we're really going to have to work together.
Well, irregardless, whoever wins, you put a lot into it. Both parties do, into making a difference in the community.
Mhm.
You know, whether you agree with how their approach is, they take a lot of time to do this, and I don't see a whole cast of people out there doing it. There's only a few that want to make a difference in the community. So we need to kind of put that in perspective as well, that people are volunteering their time to make a difference in our community at this point.
I would slightly disagree with that, Margie. Let me tell
Okay.
you why. I think that there actually are a lot of people who want to make a difference in our community. But the reality is that, you know, especially in a very Republican-oriented community, people are working. They're all hustling to make a living to support their families. And it's very hard to take the time to you know, go and do civic work and community work. And so I wouldn't be so down so much on people as far as not wanting reform. I think they actually do.
I agree with you there. It might have been the way that I approached that. I think it takes a certain person to run for office.
True.
You know, and you've been down that road too. It
Right.
does take a certain person to put everything, stop everything else they're doing, whether they have another business that they're doing, family. Your whole family's out there on the line with you as well.
Yeah.
Right, Christian? I mean, that's just the way it is. And pot shots and everything. You've got to have that discussion before you even decide to run, that it's going to happen.
You know, it's interesting I think it's really cool that you have Christian Collins on this show. And let me tell you why.
Christian.
You know, Christian,
I don't like him. I don't like him.
Some people like me, some people don't.
Okay.
No, but there's an interesting analogy, which is when Kevin Brady ran in 1996 for the first time for Congress. You know, that was, I think it was a 6-person race or maybe a 5-person race at the beginning. And then there was a very, very hotly contested runoff election between Kevin and Dr. Jean Fontenot. And, you know, we saw a lot of the same type of stuff where, you know, Dr. Fontenot's people would not only go after Kevin, but they would also go after Kevin's supporters.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, what we're seeing now, especially from Greg's opponent, is some of the most vicious attacks
They're
I've
very
ever
vicious.
seen.
It's worse than I've ever seen.
And it's not even so much against
Me,
Greg.
it's some of the supporters.
you know,
It's
against
everybody
his
else.
supporters, right? And
including myself.
right, that's right. And you know, it's not a very effective campaign mechanism, because what it does is it's sort of like, you know, what happened with and excuse me for swearing on the show, but Hillary Clinton. You know, when she made her comment about, you're not supposed to laugh at profanity, Christian. But you know, when she made her comment about the basket of deplorables in September of 2016, and it backfired because it wasn't a criticism of her opponent, Mr. Trump, at the time. It was a criticism of the people who were supporting him. And, you know, that's what we're seeing more and more out of the Riley camp. And it's a real shame because, you know, we do have to be a community afterwards, and hopefully we can be a really good, cohesive community after the election is over.
I agree with that. So let's stay on topic here, Greg, unless you wanted to add something else to that.
No, we'll stay on topic.
Okay. So tell me about what you're hoping to bring, what kind of changes you're hoping to bring,
Oh,
and why people should come out and vote for you.
Okay. Well, one, I do believe, first of all, the changes I want to bring, or I believe can bring, and the vision I have for Precinct 2 is a vision where we're mobile and we have the mobility that we deserve. The fact is that we have projects from the 2015 bond that have been started and really.
Why haven't they been started?
Well, that's something you're going to ask Mr. Riley about.
Okay.
That haven't been started and they're not moving forward. I'm not going to go into being super negative there. They have not moving forward, and they need to. We have significant conflicts of interest that need to be addressed, nepotism and several other things that are not being addressed that need to be, so we can have a level playing field for everyone and all people who want to interact not only with the county but the citizens as well. And I believe it's important that we lower taxes and give money back to the people to put more money in their pockets. And these are the things. This is the vision I have for Precinct 2. And you say, okay, well, Greg, that's great. What can you do? I've done it before, and I know I can do it again. Not only from the standpoint of being a 2-term county commissioner in Comal County.
And you weren't run out of town.
And I was not run out of town at all. I have testimony to say so. But anyway, like I said, I'm not going to address their lies. The fact of the matter is I performed well and was very well respected in Comal County. And a track record of actually doing these things, whether it's mobility planning, from this actually, and also stopping toll roads. And I think it's important we do that. Also, I want to make sure we assist other communities in beginning or pretty much living up to their fullest potential. The Woodlands is looking at incorporation. As a former city manager, I can tell you it's important to foster that development so that those citizens of the Woodlands can chart their own course, whether it be in roads or ordinances or things to that effect. Let's support them in the things they want to do. And that's the kind of person we need as Commissioner in Precinct 2, not just saying, hey, I'm just washing my hands of it, or, you know what, we've got flooding issues. Well, you shouldn't have moved over there. That's the one thing that really irks me about.
That's very helpful, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, you've got people in Precinct 2 who are going through flood issues, and the best they can get is, well, you moved over there. You're
not home.
And they're still not,
there's abandoned streets out there.
4 inches of rain, and they can't get to their house.
Correct.
That's just downright ridiculous. On a county road, they can't get to their house.
Well, I have a couple of questions for you. Okay, so you have some endorsements by some affluent people, leaders in the Woodlands. Who are they?
Okay. Well, I am.
Tell all, Greg.
Tell all, yes. I mean, I know. So that was kind of a rhetoric question.
Yeah. Well, several of the, some of the Woodlands Township Board, Gordy, Brian Boniface, and John Brown.
Gordy Bunch. Thank you.
We also have been endorsed by Commissioner. I've also been endorsed by a former competitor, Brian Dawson. We're looking at, we're
just said that.
Yeah, we've got
Steve Toth.
The group Steve Toth actually just came out. Oh, thank you for reminding me.
Well, that's what I do.
Appreciate that. We also have groups such as the Patriots PAC, Montgomery County Tea Party, the Texas Against Toll Roads. Oh man, got quite a few.
Texas for Fiscal Responsibility.
Right.
Montgomery County Law Enforcement Association.
Yes.
Grassroots America.
Yes.
Precinct chairs.
How about Brett Ligon?
Well,
I'm supported by Brett Ligon.
You're supported. He did come out and say that. He did not say endorsed. He did not use that word.
He did not use that word.
He just said he liked you because you haven't been in his court. He hasn't worked against you. You have not threatened him.
I haven't, and he has not wasted any taxpayer money in investigating me for anything. And I can tell you, 90 times. Oh,
don't turn around and look. Don't do that.
I can tell you, 99.9%, he will not be investigating me. Only time I've ever seen the inside of.
So you've taken a tour. You haven't really. Okay. All right. So he did say that. And tell me about precinct chairs.
Oh, we have 11 of the 20 precinct chairs, if I'm not mistaken, that have endorsed the campaign. Yes, that is correct.
That's a pretty strong statement.
I want to say it's 5 out of the Magnolia area, and the rest out of the remainder of the precinct. So
you have a lot of people behind you, pushing you forward.
Yes. And make no mistake, these individuals, while they've lent their names, they've also lent their time, and they've lent not only communicating with their supporters and communicating with their friends to to get out and vote. And that's what I appreciated. They're not just there just to put their name on it. They've actually been active and involved. And I want to thank them for that.
And you are educated, right? I mean, did you just mail in and get your education or what?
Yeah. Wish it was that, but it is not. Yes.
I know. I've been down that road. It's not that easy.
Yes. Despite some of the things that are out there and wanting to disparage some of the, I think it's 19 million individuals who decided to move forward with education online. Even brick and mortar universities now have online education.
Well, it just makes it easier, especially for people that work and have, a job.
That's correct.
You don't always know what you're going to do when you're 17 or 18 in life. And, life takes you down different journeys,
different roads.
But you do have 2 degrees at this point.
That's correct. I have a bachelor's degree, business administration, emphasis on project management, a master's of public administration, and I am completing ABD for my PhD in public policy. Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
The truth.
The truth.
Can I add one? There's one group that actually has endorsed Greg, and I don't know their names, but it's an important group, and that is, I've talked to several people who have been elected officials, city officials, and county government officials in Comal County. And they have told me directly that they've never seen a better county commissioner than Greg Parker, that he was fantastic and that he will only bring positive things to the county government in Montgomery County.
And you only left because your wife?
Well, I believe in term limits.
Well, you believe in term limits.
And 2 terms was more than enough. And my wife, during the time I was county commissioner, my wife was working in Houston. And
how'd that work out?
It was interesting having her commute back and forth, but distance makes the heart grow fonder. Upon deciding not to run again, she's like, "We're moving closer to my job," and we picked Montgomery County.
Okay.
Yeah, I was not run out of county at all, remotely. Not even remotely.
And city manager.
City manager, yes, I was city manager of a small town in Oklahoma. I spent a year, and I know there's who want to chat. But we have plenty of testimony. Folks have called up there. I was proven to be a fantastic city manager, didn't mismanage anything. And the reason why my contract was not renewed there is because I would not perform nepotism or cronyism for some of the city leaders that wish to do so. And that is documented in the press.
So tell me about nepotism in Montgomery County, Mr. Yollick.
This is only an hour-long show.
I know, and we're like halfway done.
Charts and graphs.
I know a Christian wants to talk too.
No, nepotism is a giant problem in this county. I mean, it's almost like it's a family business in the county government. Almost every department has nepotism problems. If you look at the 5 county commissioners, 3 of them have immediate family members and close relations. Who have jobs in the county. It's just wrong. It's an abuse of power.
And it needs to stop.
So tell me why and when you started the Golden Hammer.
Oh, that's a good question.
Well,
everybody's looking at you.
I decided in June of 2016 that I wanted to try to reduce the size of the county government by, reduce spending and reduce taxes. And I started working with the Conroe Courier. There were a couple of reporters there who were, I would give them news stories and they would report them. But I started to see that the Courier really worked more with the county government than they did with the representing the interests of the people. So at that point, basically, I decided the only way I was going to get the real information out was starting my own newspaper. And so that's how the Golden Hammer came into existence.
Can I make a comment real quick?
Of course.
I studied political science at the University of Texas.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us today, Christian.
And Margie, thank you so much for all that you do and your activism. And you do such a great job in our community. So thank you so much. And just from a political science perspective, one of the things that I've observed about the Golden Hammer is that it gets a lot of clicks, and some people are afraid to like it, but they read it.
Yep.
And
everybody reads it.
I think it subliminally affects the minds of the voters, whether they open it or not. They see the caption, they see the picture, and it's day after day after day. Mm-hmm. And it usually happens right around 11 or 12 at night. So you read your You read your Psalms before bed, then you get the golden hammer, and then you go to bed.
Right. Well, thank you, Christian. No, I mean, the reality is I have a lot of fun with it. And, I hope that it's having a positive effect. I know there's some people who probably don't appreciate the criticism.
Well, you have thick skin, Erik, that's for sure, because to do what you
I have
do.
too much.
You have thick skin, and I think there are people that love you and obviously that hate you, but you're standing up for what you believe in, and that's to be respected and admired. And I think a lot of people have realized that in this past cycle, that he's become one of the most influential activists, if not the most influential activists in our community.
Thanks.
And so
Everybody's heard of you.
I'm sorry.
you go to the random diner and you'll see people just reading the golden hammer on their phones. The guy at the gym, he said, "Have you ever heard of the golden hammer?"
But honestly, I'm having a good time. But I mean, and I appreciate what you say, Christian. But I mean, you look at people honestly like Ginger Russell, Julie Turner, Bill O'Sullivan. I mean, those people have worked for years so hard. What I'm doing is nothing compared to what those people are.
Well, I think I don't believe Christian is downing their input by all means. I mean, because I think they do have significant input in the community and made significant changes. But we do have to look at the fact since 2016 until now, or when you start until now, the landscape has changed. And when we walk blocks, we've talked to people that, will tell you, I saw that on the golden hammer or something to that effect. They may not want to click like, but they do read it. And it has had a significant change on the political landscape that is Montgomery County. And where I think the Courier fell short, you have picked up that slack. You have done the investigative journalism, and whether it be from a tabloid style or not, the fact is you've done that investigative journalism. You're looking into opening up those things that are closed. And now we've got that part where, okay, well, I may go to the Courier to, look at to see two different sides. I go to the Golden Hammer to see what's been exposed.
Right.
To see what's
Well, you know what? We're going to take a break right on that. And we're going to come back and talk a little bit about Jim Clark. We're going to talk about national news and what Congressman Brady is doing. I'm Margie Taylor, your host for Conroe Culture News. We are live. We're just going to hear a little bit from our sponsor.
Roger Stein Chiropractic has offered spine and joint manipulation services to residents of Montgomery County and surrounding areas. Conditions treated include lower back pain, migraines, headaches, whiplash, carpal tunnel, neck pain, sciatica, joint pain, sports injuries, herniated discs, and complications from pregnancy. Roger Stein Chiropractic, led by Dr. Stacy Rogers and Dr. Brian McGee, is an integrity-verified chiropractic clinic. Call 936-441-9990 for an appointment, or visit rogerssteinchiropractic.com. That's RODGERSSTEIN chiropractic.com.
The Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service has been dedicated to educating Texans for over a century. In 1915, the Extension Program was established under the federal Smith-Lever Act to deliver university knowledge and agricultural research findings directly to the people. Ever since, AgriLife Extension programs have addressed the emerging issues of the day, serving diverse populations across the state. Texans turn to Extension for solutions in horticulture, agriculture, 4-H and youth, and family and consumer sciences. Extension agents respond not only with answers, but also with resources and services that result in significant returns on investment to boost the economy. Join us Fridays at 1 o'clock for the AgriLife Extension Hour.
Did you know there are more than 790 abused and neglected children currently in foster care in Montgomery County? Will you help make a difference? I'm Allie Stevens with Casa Child Advocates of Montgomery County. We train and support volunteers to be the voice of children in the foster care system. Kids removed from their home because of abuse and neglect, and we need volunteers just like you to advocate for these children. To learn more about becoming an advocate, please visit CasaSpeaksForKids.com. That's CasaSpeaksForKids.com.
And we are back. I am Margie Taylor, the host of Conroe Culture News, FM 104.5, 106.1, every Monday at noon for the last 2 years. Downtown Conroe, right next to Conroe Coffee. And we are here today with Greg Parker, candidate for the runoffs in Precinct 2. We're going to talk a little bit about Jim Clark, who's also in the runoffs at Precinct 4. These are important races for Commissioner's Court. We also have Erik Yollick, who is here. If you don't know who Erik Yollick is, I guess you don't live in Montgomery County is all I know. And he's with the Golden Hammer. And Christian Collins, who is
Campaign manager.
I want to keep calling you Chief of Staff. Is that okay? No. I mean, everybody's,
it's a different
everybody's
department.
getting a promotion over there, I've seen.
Yeah, it's a different department. So,
okay, well, we won't. Campaign manager.
I deal with the politics of it.
Yeah, imagine. So we're talking politics today. We're talking local politics that are into national things that are going on and federal things. So I want to talk a little bit about what's on PRC's runoffs. So Commissioner Riley does have an indictment against him. I mean, that is true. He hasn't been found guilty, but because it's been going back and forth since 2016, right. I believe. And so it is now waiting in an appellate court, correct?
Right.
For an appeal?
Right. What happened was his indictment was actually dismissed, but then the Beaumont Court of Appeals reversed the trial judge, reinstated the indictment on February the 8th. Now Riley, his co-defendant Mark Davenport, and his other co-defendant Craig Doyle are trying to get the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals to hear the case. It's not necessarily true that they'll even hear it. They don't have to. And so if they don't, then it'll come back to Montgomery County for a jury trial.
That wouldn't be good for them, probably. Or would it? I mean, what is your just opinion?
I have to admit, my feeling about that case has actually changed a little bit. At the beginning, I didn't think very much of it, but the more I hear about it, and I've seen some of the grand jury evidence, I think they have a real problem, actually. I think that a jury trial, remember already a grand jury, which is ordinary citizens, indicted them.
Right. And that was the beginning.
Right. And so, you'd have drawn from a similar jury pool, a regular 12-person jury that would hear their case. So I think they have some things to fear in a jury trial.
Well, but it won't happen before this election is over. I mean, that isn't going to happen. The election will be over here between the two of you and Jim Clark and Metz, May 22nd, which is a week from now.
Mm-hmm. My question was, what happens, let's say, in the two scenarios? If Charlie loses, what do you think happens? And if Charlie wins, what do you think happens?
I think that if Charlie loses in the runoff with you, Greg, that there is a really strong likelihood that both he and Craig Doyle will cut a deal with the special prosecutor, Chris Hanley. It's just, it's not worth fighting over at that point. If they win, then the danger is that, Doyle's already lost, so he's out at the end of the year. If Charlie Riley wins, there are a couple of dangers. One of them is that if the case goes to trial, in the next few months, let's say over the summer, what could easily happen is that if he's convicted, it is an automatic removal from office under the Texas Government Code. And so basically at that point, the Republican Party would have to appoint a new nominee. But the problem is that if they're within 68 days of the general election, and I forgot when it is, and it's one of the first 10 days in November, if that happens, then the Republican Party would not have the right to choose a new nominee. And so a Democrat would actually be elected county commissioner. If it happens on a different time, so in other words, either the case goes to trial before that 68-day period, or it goes into, what's most likely is it'll go to trial in November in 2019. What would likely happen at that point is that Charlie would be removed from office if he's convicted, and then the county judge in Montgomery County would appoint a new Precinct 2 county commissioner. I mean, that's not a very good option either. Then the people don't get to choose their county commissioner.
Well, there you have it. Okay, so before I move over to Christian, Jim Clark, tell me something about Jim Clark and why it's important for him to win.
Well, Jim Clark's got the best voting record of the 5 members of the county commissioners court right now. I'm not saying that Jim is a perfect candidate or a perfect commissioner. I think he had a rough start, but he has greatly improved as a county commissioner. He's a lot more responsive.
He was on your hit list for a while.
He wasn't on. I've never had a hit list, but I mean,
I don't mean that broad.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, he certainly was someone that I was not happy with
Right.
in a couple of the things he was doing. But he really has improved a lot, and I think the people in Precinct 4 are recognizing that he's a much better commissioner than he was even a year ago. So it's important to reelect Jim Clark. Jim is, I think he is very sincere. Even when I was critical of him, I always felt that he really thought that he was trying to do the right thing.
Well, and sometimes you don't know until
Right.
with experience. And he was newer in his position. He hadn't been involved on some of the projects as he is now. And of course, we had a lot of flooding out there and the hurricanes and all that. So he has been actively involved in some of those concerns, the flood mitigation and road work and things like that. And I've seen that he's been progressing. Right. He's about getting the extension or the toll taken off at the flyover, the 242, right. which isn't happening right now. So
and Jim has done an outstanding job with the money that he received in the road bond referendum. The Courier blog has tried to make it look like he's done nothing, but what he's actually done is he's taken the $70 million that he got in the road bond referendum for projects in Precinct 4 and leveraged them into about $800 million of state projects where there has to be a local matching fund. So I think he's actually done a really good job. But, the learning curve with Jim Clark shows you how important it is to bring someone like Greg Parker into office.
Who does have experience.
He's got 8 years of experience. He has more experience than Charlie Riley, James Nowak, Jim Clark. He has more experience than Craig Doyle did as a county judge as of this moment. So, experience, especially when you're dealing with issues like TxDOT, flooding issues, the San Jacinto River Authority, all these different governmental entities trying to get federal funds.
We could have a whole topic on flood mitigation.
Right. But there's a lot of complexity.
Not enough time for that.
And bringing someone in like Greg with that experience can make a huge difference.
Okay. To my right is Christian. Hey, Christian.
Hey, Margie.
So, also, and you are in Leadership Montgomery County, too.
I am.
And you are graduating in another week.
I will be. The 24th. So
I know. I'm excited. I'll be there serving food as a LMC alumni.
And what year did you graduate?
2015.
Wow. Okay. Fantastic. It's been a great program, and I would encourage anyone else to get involved. Worth your while.
So let's talk about things that are dear to you.
Okay.
And we can start off with the most important thing that's dear to you. And what is that?
Well, most important thing is the people here in Montgomery County
of course.
and
CDA. You live here.
And starting with you all, thank you all for your advocacy and involvement in our community, and special friends to the congressman. So really appreciate you. Also want to say that there's a couple of different issues that have gone on in the last couple of weeks, and I'll make this comment about President Trump. He's doing a fantastic job. The way he's handled North and South Korea, I think people thought he was a hothead, and in fact, he's proven to be very steady-minded about how he's approached this conflict. He walked away from a bad deal, and he's a little bit unconventional, I would say.
He is unconventional.
Calling Kim Jong-un a little rocket man, but of all things, he gets that man. And he brings peace to the region. They're denuclearizing, and it's amazing to see. And I think it's no coincidence that today, on the 70th anniversary of the State of Israel, that we're getting to recognize Jerusalem as its capital, and that's thanks to President Trump. President Trump is doing a fantastic job as it pertains to foreign policy. And just last week, he pulled out of the nuclear agreement with Iran, and it was a bad deal that never should have been made, and they're not going to be on a gliding path to building up weapons anymore. So we're really excited about that,
You're
to say the
fired up.
least.
You're fired
I am
up.
fired up. And all the Democrats want to talk about is Stormy Daniels and this fake news Russia investigation, which they've literally founded nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's the biggest nothing burger I've ever seen. And so President Trump is doing all he can to get our country moving in the right direction. He's getting fans left and right. Maybe you saw that Kanye got on board.
Yeah.
Which was the most random but most entertaining week of my life. But it's really exciting to see that President Trump is continuing to move the ship forward. And I think his approval rating is higher than Obama's was at this time in his presidency. He's doing a great job. Great job. And it's amazing to see that President Trump, in spite of all the odds, everyone being against him in the media, except for Fox News, everyone being against him, and there's establishment Republicans that are against him, but he's continuing to fight for the people. He's keeping promises.
He's a bulldog. He just keeps going forward.
Right. He's keeping promises that he made, and people are surprised that he's doing these things.
Right.
What? You actually want to build a wall? What? Mm-hmm. You want to put the Jerusalem embassy where it's at, where in its natural place in Jerusalem and in Israel? What? You want to get out of the Iran deal? You know, he's actually keeping his promises. And that's what's so exciting to see to the voters. And so I think the biggest way that elections have consequences is this tax deal that was made with Congress. I think they're doing an incredible job. And it all started with Kevin Brady. Had he not been in that position, I don't think we would have seen the deal that we saw. I don't think it would have been near as good. And I think the economy is doing better than ever. And you look at GDP going from 2 to above 3%. You look at this past month because of new jobs being added to the economy. And the unemployment rate is at a 3.9%. And black unemployment rate is lowest as it's ever been.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's amazing to see. And when there are more jobs added to the economy, what happens is there are more people paying taxes. And then you get the largest surplus like we had last month, $214 billion. Amazing. Amazing.
You know, it's interesting what you say about Kevin's contribution. I think that you're probably right that tax reform would not have sailed through Congress the way that it did if it hadn't been Kevin as chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. Because, you know, Kevin often has been criticized in the past for sort of being non-confrontational. You know, he's not a Freedom Caucus guy. You know, sometimes he's not as hardline as I think a lot of voters would like. But he does get along with people, and he really gets along with everyone, and always has.
Right.
Kind of important.
And it is. and you know, in this one instance, we saw where basically he was able to put together a deal on that tax bill that really was driven in large part, I think, because of his positive personality.
Right. And Erik, I'll add on to what you said. There are about 30 Freedom Caucus members on the right. And then you have the Tuesday Moderate Group that are just barely center right. And then you have the Republican Study Committee that's the biggest. And he's able to be amiable and friendly with everyone. And so when you're in a leadership position, your job is to pull everyone together. And there are people like Louis Gohmert that definitely have their purpose in Congress. They hold people's feet to the fire. They're valuable. But just as well, it's really valuable to have somebody like Congressman Brady, who's also best friends with the whip, Steve Scalise, and they're actually roommates. And they work together to get stuff done. And in this case, when we have a Republican president and you want to get someone in there in that position that can bring people together, and had it not been Kevin Brady, this tax bill may not have looked the way that it did. And our economy wouldn't be booming the way it's doing now. And we're just getting started. And so Democrats have tried to sell the lie that this is going to increase the deficit and there are going to be a lot of problems. And the CBO has put out all this false information out. But what we've actually seen is just like the Republicans predicted, that our economy's, it's making leaps and bounds above where it was this time last year. And our economy is doing better than ever under President Trump, in large part due to Congressman Kevin Brady. He was the author of this bill, and he worked very hard in bringing people together, writing the legislation, and getting something done. There's still a lot more to be done. Cutting down the size and scope of the IRS. There's a lot more to be done.
He's working on that, yeah.
But he's doing a really good job there.
So tell me, where are we at, and what is your feeling about the sanctuary states and the border control and immigration and all of that?
Well, what I would have liked to have seen in this last omnibus was a lot more border funding. And I've heard that President Trump can go the backdoor route to get more, but the votes just weren't there in the House and Senate to get a deal done past 100 miles of border wall. They do brag about the 100 miles of border wall, and they have touted that as a victory. But as you well know, I mean, the border is very vast. And so there needs to be a lot more miles put in place so that we actually secure our borders. And I like that just after that, that he sent the troops, the National Guard, down to the border to protect and defend against some of the illegal immigrant criminals that are coming over. But we have a lot more that we need to do, and I think we'll wait and see what happens. I know that President Trump will deliver, but he needs help in Congress, and he needs more votes in the House and in the Senate to get it done, because there are establishment Republicans, Flake and Corker and Graham and McCain and others that do not want to help him keep his promise to the voters. But this is why he got elected. He promised a wall. And so there are House Republicans, many of them that are on board, and the ones that aren't maybe are leaving for good reason. But we're seeing that we just don't have the votes in the Senate for him to actually keep his promises on this unless we get those votes, or unless he can go the back door route and get it done another way without maybe via executive order somehow. That's another conversation that I just don't have the answers to right now.
It does look like he's getting more votes. So far, the Republican primaries across the country have really brought in more conservatives rather than establishment candidates in the Republican Party. And the other thing, and I'm sorry to break it to the liberals who might be listening to this show, the numbers are very strongly trending towards the Republicans. You know, I'm not saying that if the election were held today that they would, not lose some seats in the House, but the way that the trends are looking, which is what you really have to look at in polling numbers, it looks like the Republicans will keep the House, they'll keep the Senate, and they may actually pick up some seats in the House.
Erik, I love your optimism, and I really hope that's the case. If that were to be what happened, it would have to be a precedent of, I don't know how many years, but we would have to break that precedent, because more than likely, I think it was 2002, but that was because after 9/11 that we had that momentum, and as a country when we came together. But usually when there's a new president, his party loses in the midterms. And that's just always been the case. But I think if there's anybody to break that precedent, it's going to be this president, because it doesn't matter what.
He's not normal, is he?
He's not normal,
I kind of like that. I like the radical.
Yeah. In spite of what the polls have said, he's proven a lot of people wrong. And so I like your optimism. I hope that's the case. And I can only say that we have to reelect the Republicans in November. And we have to do everything that we can to get out the vote for people like Ted Cruz. And we have to get out the vote for people like Greg Abbott. And throughout our, there's three important races, I would say, in the congressional races. There's Hurd in San Antonio. There's Sessions in Dallas, and there's Culberson in Houston. And those are the races that the Democrats are really targeting. They're high-profile races that they think that they have a shot to take them out. And so we have to do everything that we can to keep those people in office, and then make inroads to get not only keep the House, because if Nancy Pelosi becomes Speaker, she already said that she would raise taxes, and they're on this mission to do whatever they can to impeach Trump.
Yeah. Now, what do you see in what's the one with Crenshaw and
Roberts?
Right. Yeah. What do you see in that race?
I really like Crenshaw as a person, and Roberts is a nice guy. I think one of the things for my generation that's so exciting about Crenshaw is a younger guy that can reach millennial voters. And so people talk about his military background, and obviously he's a war hero. But we need some younger candidates in Congress, and I think he's someone that would be really good to reach our generation.
And he's a really good successor to Ted Poe. Right. Very similar outlooks on life.
I know Ted Poe.
You know,
known him for a long
I think
time.
Crenshaw will make just an amazing congressman.
Whatever happens, I believe that they will both support President Trump, and they're both nice guys, and they both are Christian men. So we'll see what happens. But I like Crenshaw in this race. I think he has the momentum, and
he's definitely recognizable. He's got the patch.
Okay, guys, we need to start wrapping up because we only have about 4 or 5 minutes left to go. And a couple things I want to mention is that people can find out more. There will be a link of this also in a synopsis on YouTube, and I will share it again on Conroe Culture News, Taylor Ice PR, and other places. Or you can go to irlonestar.com to see more of this and share the link to this show. But you will see the links to the Golden Hammer, how to find information both on Facebook and on the website, and how to find out more about Kevin Brady via his Facebook page, which is just simply Kevin Brady, or kevinbrady.house.gov for his website. And then there's Greg Parker, which is Parker 2018 for both Facebook and information about the candidate, which is all his education, experience, and any other questions that you have. And so the runoff election is going on now. You can vote 7 to 7 at 5 different places throughout the county. But you can only vote for, if you live in precinct 2 or 4, then you're eligible to go vote at these other places. And the runoff election day will be on Tuesday, May 22nd from 7 to 7. And we're all going to hold hands and rejoice one way or another and let it roll. So,
Margie, we got to be more positive than that. Greg is winning.
I know, I know, but I'm just saying, you got to get out and vote. We need people to vote because people, it's critical.
Yep.
And
a runoff turnout is the most important.
It's horrible. It's horrible. So it's about recognizing that people need to make a difference and get out in the community. And one question I have, one last question. Toll roads. So the big topic is that the mobility issue will not be fixed without it being tolled out Magnolia area. That is just not true.
I don't believe that is. Well, TxDOT has sit back and they've got the Aggie Highway that they've got planned and going. I just don't see why they would build this entire stretch of road and just leave out our 3-mile section. That's to me is just ridiculous.
Well, didn't they build a road in Grimes County?
Yeah. Well, they're going to do that. The fact, look, if at all possible, it should be a free road. Now, I don't like toll roads. We'll never support toll roads. I'm against them, and I stopped them in Comal County. It does not need to be a toll road. Fine. TxDOT wants to build it. Let them build it. It does not need to be a toll road.
Okay. Any last words from any of you guys?
Say what you want, but that's me.
Anything? This is your.
Well, I want to add one thing to that. One thing that came out very early on about that toll road was that the federal government actually had already given a grant to TxDOT to build the entire Aggie Expressway from Beltway A to College Station. And the reason is because they needed a way to transport infectious medical waste from the College Station area to the Texas Medical Center. The funding is already in place. And that's another reason that it's ridiculous. Montgomery County has come forward and basically, because of the work of Charlie Riley and Craig Doyle in lobbying, we are going to have a tollway when it ought to be a freeway. The money's already there for it.
Okay. So get out the vote if you are eligible. This is Margie Taylor, Conroe Culture News. We will be back next Monday at noon. Hope you all have a fabulous week. Thank you.
Thanks, Margie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Margie.